right, everybody. Welcome back to This Truth. I'm Alan Printup. And before we jump into the topics today, just wanted to give my thoughts and prayers to all those in the Caribbean, Jamaica, Haiti, DR, Cuba, Puerto Rico, the Upper Antilles, Bahamas, everybody in the path of Hurricane Melissa, Category 5 storm. It's a monster, and it's going to tear up a bunch of stuff, and it's going to do a lot of damage. And living in Southwest Florida, I'm no stranger to hurricanes, so I definitely know what they are going to be going through. And we need to be there for our neighbors to the south, all of them, not just Puerto Rico, but everybody down there. And I encourage everybody else to do the same. Just keep the Caribbean in thoughts and prayers. And if you're able to help, please help. But this should just lead us right into the topic of the day, which has been for most of the month, is the shutdown. And with the government shutdown, there's nothing that we're really going to be able to do because there's no allocated funds for anything. So Speaker Johnson made a press conference today, just like he does every day. And he's going to speak on this, and we're going to listen to a little bit of it. He was on for about 45 minutes. We might listen to about 10, maybe less, just so we can get the nuggets out. He talks about a lot of stuff other than the shutdown, but we're just going to talk about the shutdown for right now, because that is going to be a disruption of many lives, and it has been. There's federal workers that are going to be losing pay. Government staffers, Congress staffers, they're going to be without pay. Congress, by the Constitution, keeps their pay, which seems a little bass-ackwards to me. They're directly responsible for this. They should be the first ones to have their pay cut. That's just personal opinion. The federal government is the largest employer in the country, so that should tell you that our government is just way too bloated. And with the SNAP benefits, there's a lot of people that have no choice. There's some that have choice, but are limited in choices. And there's people that have a choice to do something, but don't exercise that choice. And for the latter two groups, for those that have no choice or have choices that are extremely limited, yeah, we definitely can do something there. But those that have a choice, have the ability, and choose not to act, there's options out there available for you. There's remote work. You can babysit at home if it's difficult for you to work, because of children. Taking a child, give them a cut rate discount on childcare because they can't afford daycare, and you need money. It's a win-win. There's plenty of part-time jobs out there. There's things that can be done. You can grow a garden. There's a lot of different things. But when times get tough financially, you got to tighten your belt. You really do. I did when I was younger and had young children. We had to tighten our belts. So yeah, substitute with the daily Starbucks run. If you stop at a gas station frequently to get snacks, you can cut that out because that'll kill your money. Fast food will kill your money. So there's things that can be done. Personal grooming, that can be cut. Hair, nails, lashes, facials, massage, all that stuff can be cut out. So there's things that you can do. Now, if you are one of those individuals that don't have any of that, you don't have any personal grooming costs, you don't have a daily Starbucks, you don't have any of that stuff, you're one of the ones I'm talking to that really need the assistance. But there are people out there that take advantage of the system. I've seen it myself in my own personal life. I've seen people take advantage of the system, and it's not good. But the government is bloated, and we're starting to see that now. And when the Democrats were presented the opportunity to vote on keeping the military paid and SNAP funded, they declined. So, and you'll hear Speaker Johnson say that the minority whip said that the SNAP program is the only leverage they've got, or one of the few pieces of leverage that they've got. Now, what they're asking for, $1.5 trillion, and Speaker Johnson's going to go through maybe about 300 million of that, maybe a little less. It's a partisan wish list. It is. And the majority of it is just some of the stuff that the administration had been excising out of our spending ever since he took office through Doge. And Speaker Johnson's going to detail a couple of those items. The $200 billion in ACA subsidies. Well, ACA is broken. We knew that a long time ago. Republicans and Democrats are trying to fix it. It's going to be a bleeding program if something's not done, because it's only affordable to those that are getting subsidized. If you're not getting subsidized, it's completely not affordable. So, like for instance, somebody like me that's self-employed, I can buy a private plan for $300 less a month than what I can buy from the healthcare.gov marketplace. And the marketplace has got higher deductibles, higher copays, and higher out-of-pocket max than a private plan does. It costs substantially less. So it's not affordable. It's only affordable to those that are being heavily subsidized. Now, that being said, it needs to be fixed. SNAP, we need that funded. So the posturing needs to stop. It really does. And boy, I would not be anybody's friend if I was in Congress, because I would be presenting bills for term limits and for situations like this. Hey, we can't fund the government. Well, Congress goes without pay. We're the first ones on the chopping block, funding wise. And deficit control, make you unelectable. Different things. Congress would not like me being in Congress if I was elected, and I would be nobody's friend there. But the government is too bloated, and we've got to scale a lot of things back. We definitely need to tighten our belt. We're 34 trillion, 37 trillion. Our debt's getting way out of control, and we're not the only country, in debt. We're one of the worst ones. We're definitely in the top 3, but we can say that it's caused by all these different things. Well, we really, historically speaking, the government has run out of money before and needed, debt or needed a bailout, and that goes all the way back to the Industrial, Revolution. It's just what I can come up with off the top of my head. Late 1800s, maybe early 1900s, very early 1900s. There was a time or two where the government needed a bailout for some wealthy Americans. That's just it. And the government should be like any American family. Can't overspend. We can't just keep accruing debt. As a citizen like me, I just can't just keep accruing debt. And our interest payment now exceeds the entire defense budget. That's not sustainable. It's going to take generations to pay that off. If we cut down slim now and remain that slim, it's going to take generations to pay off, because our money has no value. And that started when Nixon took us off of the gold standard. So now our money, our paper money, I don't have anything in my hand, but it's not backed by anything. So where our money was finite, it's now infinite. It has no value where it did have value. And in the early 70s, also when we came off of the gold standard, that's when we started seeing the separation in wages. It used to be workers and executives; their wages were increasing steadily at the same rate. And then right about that time, the executives started going up, and average workers were still on that slow and steady, but the executives started going up quickly. Also in the 70s, that's where the mortgage-backed securities, started, that crashed the economy in 08. So yeah, government doesn't need to be in a lot of things, and I hate that we're going through this, and I hate there's people that's going to be suffering, that's already suffering and could be suffering after this weekend. But it just goes to show you, and we should take an objective look at this. Okay, well, Congress can't get it done. Now, there are 3 Democrats that are voting with Republicans, so it's not the entire party. It's almost all of it, though. There are 3 people that have broke with their caucus and sided with the Republicans to keep things open and going. So, without further ado, let's see what Speaker Johnson has to say.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 28 of the Democrat shutdown. We're almost a month into this, and we wanted to highlight a couple of things and a few members this morning. There are some very important developments. But before we get to all that, one of the things that we wanted to note is that really it's painfully obvious to everyone the true motivation of the Democrats' historic obstruction has now become very clear for everyone. I want to use a little simple, Lily, if you show me this real quick. Just real quick, simple facts, because these things get obscured too much. But there are simple facts about the Democrat shutdown that everybody needs to recognize. Here's 4 of them. First of all, we have to have Democrats to reopen the government. You know that in the Senate, it requires 60 votes to break an impasse. Wait, hang it on, Lily, hold it real keep it close to the podium. Now, I want everybody to see this, okay? We're going to make it simple. I had my 15-year-old son and some of his friends were together over the weekend, and they wanted me to explain it to them as simply as possible. This is the little formulation, okay? Hey, fellas, remember from civics, you gotta have 60 votes in the Senate. We only have 53 Republicans, so we must have Democrats to do it. The Democrats are out trying to claim that this is all on Republicans because we control the government. We don't control the Senate without 60 votes, so you have to have them. Now they've voted 13 times, those Senate Democrats, counting the House and the Senate together, they voted 13 times to keep the government closed. And what they're demanding as a ransom to reopen the government are some really crazy things. They want to restore $200 billion in health benefits paid for by U.S. taxpayers to illegal aliens and non-citizens. We can't do that. They want billions of dollars in wasteful programs to be returned to foreign countries for things that none of you would agree with. We're not going to do that. They want $500 million to go back to left-leaning news organizations, paid for by taxpayers. We can't do that. And then they want to cut $50 billion from the Rural Hospital Fund that Republicans got signed into law July 4th to prop up healthcare in red states and rural areas around the country. It's too important, but they want to take that away. They know that we can't do it. And now that they've begun to admit what this is all about, thankfully, put another thing there. They're admitting what they're up to. Chuck Schumer said every day of the shutdown gets better for us, meaning the Democrat Party. And you know, we had the second-ranked Democrat in the House, the minority whip, who just said a few days ago, the end of last week, that we know that this is causing great pain for the American people, but we have to use this leverage. We don't have many times where we have leverage like this. And so they've shown you what the real motivation is.
That's disappointing.
But ultimately, why are they doing all that? But let me summarize this really quickly, as simply as I can, for the civic students back home. Republicans are not demanding anything, literally nothing. All we want is to reopen the government. The Democrats are demanding all those things I just showed you on the chart, plus a lot more. When I say they want to send money to foreign countries, this is some of the things that they would propose that we spend money on again. They're demanding, this is a ransom to reopen the government. Things like $4 million for global LGBTQI plus awareness campaigns around the world. $4 million for the LGBTQI plus democracy grants in the Balkans. They want $2 million for feminist democratic principles projects in Africa. We're not doing that. But again, the question is why? Why? This sounds crazy. It
sounds like NGO
scams.
scams.
And what we saw on vivid display over the weekend was the re-emphasis of this fact. This is motivated purely out of fear. And what do we mean by that? You saw the Democratic leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, endorse Zoran Mamdani for mayor of New York City on Friday.
Congress's first job is to get reelected.
Of what we're facing here. The Democrats right now fear the far left activists more than they fear air traffic controllers, border patrol agents, American service members, and so many others missing their paychecks. They fear the Marxist insurgents like Mamdani more than they fear families and children going hungry from lapsed benefits that keep food on their tables. They simply fear losing their own political positions next November if they don't appease the angry far left base right now. And they will appease that base at any cost, no matter how much pain's inflicted. In fact, they've said in their own words, this gets better for us day by day. How does it get better? Because they're proving to the angry far left base in their party that they will prioritize them over the American people. And simply put, it's the profound fear in the Democratic Party that drives this shutdown. It is not principle. It is not policy. It is certainly not concern for the constituents that they say that they want to represent. We know that because even their own constituents now are begging Democrats to stop the political games and reopen the government. Just yesterday, the largest union of federal workers, the very people that the Democrats claim that they fight for, came out publicly and urged the Democrats to join the Republicans in passing the House's very simple short-term funding bill. Also, yesterday, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association began to put up flyers in airports to explain the real danger that is being imposed for air travel, air safety in this country, highlighting what the Democrats are doing. So I just want to say this simply to our Democrat colleagues. You have an off-ramp now. You painted yourself into a corner, but here's your off-ramp. The unions, the largest unions are saying, please do this. You can claim that as cover and say that you had to do it. Reopen the government. Get it working for the people. It's our number one priority and responsibility as members of Congress. But Senate Democrats have refused to do it for almost a month now. I've said it over and over. Republicans have done our job. We passed the clean short-term funding extension to keep the lights on and pay all these workers and our troops and fund programs like SNAP and WIC that Americans need and rely on. And in the meantime, Republicans have been working very hard around the clock every day of this Democrat shutdown to do our best to reduce the pain for our constituents. In our districts, we've got a video running over here just showing some highlights of what all the House Republicans are doing and have been doing for the last few.
Okay, that's enough of that. So you heard it there from the speaker. Of course, he has his highlights, but there's a bunch in what the Democrat Party is on their wish list. Like I just said, sounds like NGO scam to me. Now, going back to Africa, for example, Africa has a lot more pressing issues than what they are proposing that they want to send money for. Slavery is still going on in Africa, and it's at a scale larger than the entire Atlantic slave trade combined historically. That's how big slavery is in Africa. There's despots and dictators, and there's health crises, there's famine, there's infrastructure issues, there's medical issues. They need clean water, they need roads, they need plumbing. They need a level of modern industrialization. They don't need this. What the Democrats are proposing. That's why I say it sounds like an NGO scam. You want to send $2 million for one issue in the Balkans? I'm like, what's $2 million going to do? I mean, give you an example of an NGO scam. My son did some hurricane cleanup in Virginia. He got a 6-month contract paying X amount of dollars. Okay. After he was there maybe 5 weeks, he said, Dad, I'm not getting paid. And come to find out, the money ran out. All right. Now, there was an earmark of money, and a company got that contract. Then they hired another company. Then that company hired the contractors. Those contractors hired the people that actually did the work. So there was 2 or 3 layers of people pulling money out. And by the time it got down to implementation, 70% of the money was gone because people were just pulling it out, like handling fee, rather than the contractors themselves getting the contract and having a lot more money to work with. So, and that happens to a lot of our government programs and our government spending, and why DOGE was brought in early on in this administration, because there's a ton of that going on. We could probably spend 40% less and get the same exact results financially that we get. if we just eliminated, some of those hands in the cookie jar, so to speak. So Mike Johnson, I think, is hitting the nail on the head there. I don't think people in need of food stamps or nutrition assistance programs should be considered leverage. And shame on the whip for stating that. We don't ever get leverage like this. That is not the leverage you use. No. People are not going to be able to buy groceries in a few days, and it's leverage. I'm not speechless. I'm just restraining the words because I want to go off. That is not a good deal. But air traffic control, yeah, there's people that are not getting paid, and people are starting to call out. So the people that are showing up are going to be working for free, and they're going to be working long hours. So there's going to be fatigue. So yeah, there is going to be some danger there. The TSA, same situation. However, when it comes to those two departments specifically, I think that should come directly from. That should be funded by airlines and airports, not the federal government. It should be funded 100%. And that just goes to show you the blow that government shouldn't be in some things. Yeah, the FAA can have some regulatory oversight. The Department of Homeland Security can have regulatory oversight on training and effectiveness benchmarks and whatnot, technology implementation and what have you. But the funding to pay these people, that should be coming from the airlines and the airports. It really should. And so that's an involvement where our government should not be involved. Well, yeah, they're involvement as far as oversight, but not as funding. And there's other areas within different industries that are like that, that the government should not be in the business of funding. And that's where I align with President Trump on certain issues that the government should have no business, funding this. We shouldn't. That should be from the airlines and the airports. The airports charge charge rent for their spaces for all their vendors, whether it be clothing, electronics, food, curiosities, tour. All the vendors pay rent, just like in a stadium. So, yeah, the airport should be paying. Air traffic control is an extension of the airport. The airline should be kicking in. The airport should be kicking in. Now, airport police, that's a little bit different, but that should come directly from the airport as well. In that funding. But this isn't about airport police. This is about TSA and ATC. Yeah, government shouldn't be government dollars. Now, with like I said, with that hurricane coming, yeah, we need to step up and help our neighbors to the south. As long as we're shut down, we're not going to be able to do that. We're not. Yeah, our government, key players in our government can talk to some of the wealthiest individuals in the country, see if they want to make a donation or do something on their own. To help out, unless the government gets back open. That's about all that's going to happen. And we're going to have those countries, those islands to the south of us, they're going to be decimated, in need of relief, and nothing's going to come because, the big brother to the north can't get its act together and fund what needs to be funded now. Our money has no value. I hate that I'm just doing a segue like this, but our money doesn't have any value. That started with the gold standard, and I've spoken about this, and that's where the inflation started. So I know there's things that can be done within the government while the shutdown happens. That's how we got some military funding. We pulled from other buckets within the military to go to payroll. But not every department is like that. Not every department has multiple, funds within the general fund, different. That can be reallocated and redistributed. Some departments only have one fund, and when it's dry, you can't take from another department and pull it there. So I just pray that our government can get everything done. like it should. There's too much business travel. There's too many people needing to buy food, and it's going to affect every state differently. You know, states like Wyoming or Arkansas, which are two of the poorest, in Mississippi, Alabama, some of the poorest states, will have the least economic opportunities for its citizens. Yeah, it's going to affect them a lot more. Single mothers make up the largest group on food stamps, so they're definitely going to be affected the most. It just makes me shake my head that our government, the United States government, the most powerful country in the world, can't get past this. Can't get past it. And it just goes to show you that there are issues within our own system that need to be shored up. Now, Democrats filibustering this is not uncommon. I've seen many filibusters in the past, and I've read about filibusters before I was even born. And there was a filibuster for the American, the ACA, Obamacare. There was a filibuster then because they were trying to get that passed, and there was a lot of pushback on it, and for good reason. And that should not have passed because the way it was done, nobody read it. And when they said you have to pass the bill in order to know what's in it, that is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my life. But I'm going to get off of that soapbox there. But the largest filibuster that I know of, that I've read about or seen, was the Democrats' filibuster of the Civil Rights Act. Same type of well, not the same type of deal, but they were unified in not voting for the Civil Rights Act. Now, the Civil Rights Act, they tried to, President Lincoln, everything that was within the Civil Rights Act, President Lincoln was trying to do with emancipation. It took another 100. He got what he could get at the time, and it took another 100 years to get the rest of it, which is ridiculous. And actually, when the Constitution was being drafted, they were trying to end slavery too, but couldn't get it ratified by the states because of it. So that's why it took 90 years before we got emancipation, and another 100 years before we got the Civil Rights Act. So there have been filibusters, but it's usually around something big, not something like this. So there is some reason that the Democrats are picking this moment now to do that. And he brought up Zoran Mamdani. I'm bad with names. I really am. I do try to get better, but I just say it real fast like I know what I'm talking about, like an old Bible name, and just keep going. Zoran Mamdani. Oh, geez. I don't exactly think that he's the best for New York. New York needs somebody more sensible, I believe. However, he is, I think he's still a favorite to win mayor of the city. And if he does, those that are able-bodied are going to move out of New York. And those the most able are going to go to friendly areas like Nashville, Tennessee, North Carolina, Florida, and Texas. Here in Florida, we see a number of New Yorkers move to the state every year, no matter what's going on in New York. I mean, I'm not talking about New York City, but New York State as a whole. And it's a common thing to be said in Florida. The farther south in Florida you go, the more northern you become. Because there are a lot of northern accents here in Southwest Florida, Southeast Florida. You get a lot in New York, Indiana, Wisconsin, Philadelphia, Minnesota, Canada. So the northern Midwest and the Northeast, they're all down here in the Southwest, Southeast Florida. So they said the southern half of the state, from Sarasota south, maybe even Tampa. I've got clients coming in next month from Wisconsin and Michigan, two separate clients. I've got clients in town right now from Virginia. I had somebody, down earlier into last month. It was from New Jersey. It's not uncommon. I got friends that got clients in town from New York, from Indiana. Indiana's big down here. So yeah, a lot of northern accents, a lot of Midwest accents. And people say I talk funny down here because I spent the first 16 years in Memphis and then the next 28 years in Mississippi. So we don't normally hear your accents, but yeah, because people from my area don't vacation this far south. They go to Biloxi and Orange Beach and places like that. They don't come to South Florida. It's 13 hours away by car, so a little too far to drive. But yeah, the shutdown. This is ridiculous, and Congress needs to get it together. I don't know why they're having this big, Great American Standoff. Doesn't make sense to me. We know that they know that there's people that are suffering and going to be suffering even more. So why they can't get it together and get it done? The Republicans proposed just to keep the funding and spending as it was with the budget that was expiring until they got finished with the new one. The Democrats were like, no, we want all this other stuff. Like, whoa, those are budget, items to be, it's just too much. So we'll see how it shakes out this week. I have a feeling it might come to a close this week because of SNAP. I think they're playing a game of chicken at this point. I don't think the Republicans are going to flinch. They've got too much momentum. They've got too much high ground. Not just as a party, as Republicans are popular. They really are. The president's popular. Now there is, of course, persons that don't like him, but hey, Democrats don't like President Trump. They didn't like President Reagan either. And what does President Trump and President Reagan have in common? They're both former Democrats. Wonder why they became Republican. Same with Tulsi Gabbard. She used to be a Democrat. Bobby Kennedy, RFK Jr., used to be a Democrat. There's a number of, popular Republicans that used to be Democrats. There's people in my family that used to be Democrats that are now Republicans. I'm still an independent, but I'm conservative leaning just because the political spectrum shifted on top of me. I didn't move anything. The spectrum changed. So that's it. This truth. Congress needs to get its shit together and get it done. They really do. And we need a long, hard look and see what all the government's involved in that it shouldn't be involved in. And I don't think the government should be the largest employer in the country. It's still too bloated. I think more cuts and revisions are necessary. I think it's going to take years to do that. I don't think this administration can get all that revision and done. There are things on the books that don't need to be on the books, that are like post World War II. They were appropriate then, they're not appropriate now. So we need to go through a lot of stuff. So thanks for watching. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Drop them down below. For This Truth, I'm Alan Printup. Be well.